to underserved communities. Thank you, Manny. We focus on mentorship, scholarship advocacy, guidance, and support. And we also have a mentorship program where we help students during their graduate school applications to USC. And today we have 5 excellent panelists at the Price School. We will be representing 4 different scholarships: the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund, the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship, the Wes McClure Scholarship, and the Bryce Harlow Fellowship. For our first panelist, we have Ashley Ceballos-Hernandez, who's a first-year Master of Public Policy student. We have Adriana Morales, who's representing the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship, and she's a second-year Master of Public Administration student. We have Jilla Nadimi from the Wes McClure Scholarship. She's a first-year Master of Public Administration student. We have Mark Borges, who's an MPA student who will be representing the Bryce Harlow Fellowship. And we have AJ Lucas, who's an MPP student who will also be representing the Bryce Harlow Fellowship. And we're going to give a little overview of each of the scholarships. For the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund, the scholarship is specifically for prospective or incoming full-time transfer or graduate students who demonstrate a strong community awareness and contribute to the betterment of a community through volunteer efforts or other service. The deadline is in June 1st, and the award amount is a total of $20,000. However, it's distributed $5,000 each semester. And if you use this QR code, it'll take you directly to that website, or we will provide this link to you after. For the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship, it provides partial tuition scholarships to USC undergraduates and graduate students who promote and or advocate for the Latino Hispanic community. Graduate scholarships are for master's candidates only. This deadline is coming up very soon on April 1st, and the award amount can range from $500 to $5,000 for graduate students. And similar to the other QR code, it'll take you directly to that website. And we do have another fellowship highlighted here. Unfortunately, we don't have a representative of the scholarship on our panelists today. But if you have any questions about the scholarship, please feel free to contact Axel Aguilar. He has the Norman Topping Student Aid Scholarship. He has the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship, as well as the Sutter Minority Fellowship in Health Administration. Here's his email. He'd be happy to answer any questions. And this fellowship specifically is for prospective graduate students who plan to enroll in the on-campus Master of Health Administration program at the Sol Price School of Public Policy. And the scholarship aims to recognize leadership or potential for a commitment to making a positive impact to underrepresented communities in health-related fields. And this deadline is coming very, very soon, and the award amount is $3,000. You can access this scholarship through the QR code. This QR code might potentially take you to the Scholarship Universe website. You might have to search for the Sutter Minority Fellowship, but the Scholarship Universe website is another great resource to apply to many other scholarships, internal to USC, but also external. And then we have the Bryce Harlow Fellowship. This is for students working full-time, attending graduate school at least part-time, and studying law, business, public policy, public administration, communications, or a related field, and demonstrate a strong interest and ability for a career in government advocacy and lobbying. The award amount is $9,000. The deadline is May 4th, and this deadline will be for the next year. And you can access the QR code here. Then we have the Wes McClure Scholarship. This is for graduate students interested in pursuing or already working in a career in local government. This scholarship will be limited to direct college expenses such as tuition and books, and may be paid to the recipient directly or to the educational institution. The deadline is May 3rd, and the award amount is $2,500. Again, you can access the QR code here. Okay, and now we've prepared a few questions, but as we're asking any questions, if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure to ask them to our panelists. Okay, so for the panelists, if you could tell us a little bit about you, your degree program, career goals, and why you chose Price. And we can start in any order. Ashley, you can kick it off.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you for having me. Thanks everyone for joining. My name's Ashley. As Mariana kind of shared, I'm a first year Master's in Public Policy student, and I'm a recipient of the Norman Topping Scholarship. I am from Los Angeles, so I'm an LA native, and which is one of the core reasons why I decided to come to Price. And my career goals are having an interest in education and juvenile justice policy. So I'm interested in maybe working at a research hub and really making data informed research decisions. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it over to Adriana.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Matt, for inviting me to be a panelist. Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana Morales. I am a second-year Master's in Public Administration student, and I'm also a recipient of the Norman Topping Student Aid Fund and the Latino Alumni Association. So I'm happy to share any details about both of these amazing scholarships. In terms of career paths, I am currently in local government. I work for the City of Long Beach in their Office of Digital Equity and Inclusion. And so my interests really revolve around program design and program evaluation. So creating programs that really benefit the community right now, specifically to bridge the digital divide. And I hope to continue to grow in local government and, really create programs that deliver towards the needs of our community. And I'll pass it over to Jilla.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Fight on. I know this is a very exciting time as you kind of consider joining the Sol Price School of Public Policy. Hope to see as many of you guys in the fall. I decided to pick Sol Price because of its reputation, and then also that it's right in the middle of Los Angeles, which is a great kind of case study for a lot of the learnings that you have in your coursework, but then also for internship opportunities and just connections within California. And to me, I've seen it like skyrocket my career. I come from previous experience working for the city of Minneapolis in the elections division. We helped implement the first ranked choice voting that the city had enacted, which is quite, looking back now, a lot of things have changed in elections in the last decade or so. And then I moved over into the NGO world working in refugee settlements. So my interest currently is the intersection of government with private and also with nonprofit sectors, and how do they collaborate with each other and how do they help make each other more efficient. So I'm kind of veering into different ways of working with government, not necessarily in government, but tangential.
Hey everyone, my name is Mark Borges. I'm currently an MPA student in the Sacramento program. So USC has a small campus in Sacramento just for the Masters of Public Administration program. I chose the Price School because this was an option. I've been working in Sacramento and in Sacramento politics for the past 2.5 years, I think. Feels like time moves very strangely these days, but I came to Sacramento by way of the Capital Fellows program. I studied environmental science in undergrad and was placed at the California Natural Resources Agency as a fellow, and then was hired as an executive analyst for the Secretary for Natural Resources. Environmental issues have always been a passion of mine, and it's where I really want to build out my career. I'm currently at a public affairs firm where I'm helping organizations navigate Sacramento and California policies, politics, and communications, mostly in the environmental and climate space, and hope to continue working in this space, potentially in a public service role following the completion of my degree in just 6-7-ish weeks. And I'll pass it on to AJ.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everyone. My name is AJ Lucas. I'm originally from Mexico City, but grew up in LA. So I guess a little about myself kind of like revolves around choosing Price. Price has always been kind of like close to home. So I think that's one of the primary reasons why I decided to come to USC. In my professional role, I currently serve as the Associate Director of Policy for a nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles. We work on everything on education and workforce development policies. And I think for me, coming into this degree to study the Masters of Public Policy was to really tap into my analytical skill sets. I think they've been really helpful in terms of understanding how policy is made, how policy is formulated, and how better implementation can be, obviously done at the local, state, and federal level. So I think for me, after this program concludes, my hope is to kind of, similar to Jilla, work at the intersection of government, nonprofit, and private sector. I have been doing that through the organization that I work for. We work very closely with the business community. We work very closely with educational institutions, government, and other advocacy groups to ensure there's a pathway for students who are starting their journey in education, going all the way into the workforce, and hoping, like, that's sort of where I pivot next, figuring out that next step. But I'll pass it back to Mariana.
Thank you, everyone. And as everyone can see, we have an excellent panel today. Please feel free to drop any questions that you have about their past experiences or their current scholarships right now. But our next question is, what was the scholarship application process like? What were the most challenging parts of the interview process, and what did you do to help you prepare? And we'll start with Ashley.
Yeah, so I think the application process for Norman Topping is pretty straightforward. It requires a online submission and then also I did a virtual interview. I'm not sure if that will change. And so it wasn't anything too difficult. A part of the application process also includes like a 500-word response to a few of the questions they have. I'm not sure the questions at the top of my head, but I'm sure you could find them on the website. The center of the scholarship is really community engagement and volunteer experience and this idea of volunteerism and giving back to your community. And so that's really what the questions focus on sort of your background and how you want to continue doing that in your future career and how this program fits into that sort of aspiration. And so that was sort of a breakdown of the program. If there's any specific questions about the application process, please let me know. But it's a very typical interview process. I think you interview with two people on the governing board, which is the individuals who is a recipient of the program, and most of which are undergraduate students, some staff. And yeah, that's kind of a breakdown, a simplistic breakdown of the application process for Norman Topping.
Adriana, would you like to answer for the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the Latino Alumni Association application, it basically consists of the application is found on Scholarship Universe, which is a platform where that USC uses to manage its scholarships. And part of that application, you have your general information, so like your name, email, address, some general like demographic questions. And then a part of it is also a statement of purpose. So they have a question that they ask you. I can't remember the exact prompt right now, but it's something along the lines of how you contribute to the Latino community, what have you done? So it's a essay, and then it also required a letter of recommendation. And so all of those are due, I think Mariana, you had pointed it out on one of your slides, but for me personally, what I think helped me was kind of highlighting how my contributions were to advocate for the Latino community. So for example, I'm currently involved in the Price Latinx Student Association. So kind of mentioned how my involvement there was catered towards the Latino community and at Price and beyond. Also my involvement, I participated in the Sunstone Economic Development Challenge, which it's a challenge that USC Price puts on. And so my client in particular was the city of San Bernardino. And it just happened to be that the demographics that we were serving were also catered towards the Latino community. So kind of really highlighting how your work elevates the Latino voice and any groups that you are a part of, any professional organizations that are particular to the Latino community. And as far as an interview, there was no interview for this scholarship application, at least for myself. And it's basically just your submission of the application on Scholarship Universe. And I believe I heard back around maybe like May or June. And then I'm just going for full transparency. My award was $5,000. I know that may vary depending on scholars, or that may vary depending on academic year. So that's a little bit about my experience with the Latino Alumni Association. If there's any other specific questions, I'm happy to answer. And I think I'll hand it over to Jilla.
Hi, so mine was the Wes McClure Scholarship. I actually only learned about it because I attended one of these sessions and Manny talked about the specific scholarship. So a little bit more about Wes McClure. So Wes McClure is a scholarship named after a specific city manager. And he also was very integral in founding the California City Management Foundation, which is like a professional group for advocacy for city managers in California. After kind of doing some digging into the scholarship, I saw that USC participants tend to get the award, and they do award 3 different awards a year. So I put it on my list of scholarships that kind of come back to and apply. Currently, the application's not live for 2025, but I would just keep checking it if that's something you're interested in. The application process was very straightforward. It was just a cover letter, and they kind of walk you through what they want in the cover letter, and then a short essay particular about like your interest in local government or your previous work experience. And then 2 reference letters. So you do need to have that sent directly to the scholarship board from your individual recommender. But no interview, quite straightforward. And then I found out maybe a couple weeks later that I received the scholarship. And it varies from year to year, but it's between 1,500 to 2,000. And I directly received the check to, apply it to my schooling.
And I can jump in next. So for the Bryce Harlow Foundation Scholarship, there's 4 written statements as part of the application. There's a statement of career interests, demonstrated leadership abilities, advocacy with integrity, and a statement on financial need. Each of those have a word max of 250 words, which I love a word maximum because I think sometimes in scholarship applications, it can be a little difficult to determine how much you're supposed to write. So those are decently short statements. And then 2 letters of rec, a resume, and your transcripts. So that's the written portion. And then there is an interview with members of their board. And the Bryce Harlow Foundation Scholarship, I think one of the biggest things that makes the opportunity such a rewarding experience is that their board is comprised of very senior government relations officials. So think like the VP of government affairs at Fortune 500 companies. And so like you do interview with some of those folks, which can be a little intimidating, but I think for me personally, like I think it's just so much more humanizing to have a discussion or conversation with people rather than just trying to talk about your passion and interests over written materials. So I always prefer the interview, or at least getting the chance to talk to like real people. And it is a 2-year scholarship, and you do have to reapply your second year. And so I did, do the whole process once through both times. I think I'll pause there and AJ can jump in if I'm missing anything.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I think, Mark, you've covered most of the logistical items of it. I think one of the things I should remind folks about the Bryce Harlow is that you should be a working professional, even if it's just part-time. That is one of the requirements of being a fellow. And again, yeah, the interview is actually not that intimidating as it might sound. They're basically just wanting to get to know you a bit more in a personal level. So just resharing some of the things that you wrote in your statements, and then sharing, what your goals are, why you're applying to this specific fellowship. I'm actually currently in DC right now, so I just got here and I'm scheduled to meet with my mentor. I have 2 mentors. I'm scheduled to meet with them next week, which is going to be exciting. We've been having virtual conversations. A lot of the fellows usually come from the East Coast. They're based in DC. So a lot of them have more activities that they are able to enjoy. Some of us that are in the West Coast, I think it's only Mark and I at the time being, don't really have that privilege of being active as much as we would like to. We do participate in some virtual PD trainings, professional development trainings that they host. So that's another way to stay connected. They have a huge network, as well as, like Mark mentioned, there's a lot of working professionals, lobbyists, and they have a lot of extensive relationships for that. And I think just to kind of also cover some of the things that my colleagues have shared here is that I also received the Latino Alumni Association scholarship. And like Adriana mentioned, the amount varies drastically depending on the year and who gets it, right? So I think for me, it was about like 1,500 that I received from the Latino Alumni Association when I applied for it. But still is a great opportunity to sort of kind of make headway into covering your full tuition. I have to say for myself, I only came in with a 25% Dean's Merit Scholarship to USC. So you can see the amount of the gap that I had to kind of make up for, right? So I think one of the best things was I had MAP as a network. I did reach out to my mentor. I had a MAP mentor when I applied to USC. He recommended I apply to the Lambda Scholars. That's a very identity affiliated scholarship for the queer community. So that one, I ended up receiving it. It's also an amazing opportunity. Unfortunately, the deadline has passed for that. That was in February. But we'll definitely put it out there to consider for next year. They're also super fun. We have a lot of cool events. The networking is really great. There's a lot of local leaders here in LA who are advocating for the LGBTQ plus community. And I think the other one that's coming up that I would highly recommend is the Rodolfo Montes Scholarship. I think that one's coming, the deadline's coming up. It's March 16th, so in a couple of days. That one, I would have to say, that is the reason why I came to USC. If it wasn't for that scholarship, I would have really reassessed my commitment to other schools just because that scholarship actually gave me the highest amount. I think it was about like $2,200, $2,300 that I received from that scholarship. So, I mean, 23,000, sorry, not 100. So it was definitely a big chunk of the tuition here at USC. And also I did my due diligence of seeking outside support. So my organization, the organization I work for, also has a tuition reimbursement if you're staying at your workplace for a certain number of hours. So I applied for that, spoke to my company and my leadership to ensure that they were also securing that fund for my graduate program. And on top of that, I also did some research online and found the Hispanic Association of College and Universities, which is mainly to support Hispanic students going into graduate school or just undergraduate as well. And I ended up receiving two scholarships that were never on my radar. One of them was the Café Bustelo Scholarship and the Ford Motor Scholarship. They were actually very good scholarships, but I think one of the takeaway there is that if you search outside of the scholarship universe, which Adriana mentioned, USC has that platform. It's great to look at it, but also search online. Ask your friends, mentors, your network, whoever you have around you. Ask if they have any opportunities. I've seen any that could be a good opportunity for you to apply to.
Thank you for sharing the Rodolfo Montes Scholarship, AJ. I believe for that one, it is only awarded to second years, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, okay. I got in my first year, but
Okay, that's good
I
to
also
know.
looked on the Maldives in the Maldive webpage.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for answering that question. And our next question is going to be, if you were previously working or studying while applying, could you share any time management advice as scholarship applications can be very stressful? Ashley, we can start with you.
Okay, I was just making sure. Sorry. Okay, I'm also realizing because I'm the first to answer the questions, I'm trying to gauge how in depth I should go. So I'll try to be more long-winded with my answers because I know I've been keeping it a little short. In terms of, so I was working while applying for graduate school. I was actually doing a fellowship here in LA. It's called the Coro Fellowship. It is a full-time commitment, but it's kind of a good mix between academics and also like that work experience. In terms for how I managed it, it was a very intensive program. There was much more than like a 40-hour commitment weekly. So it was really difficult to balance. I think for me, I'm naturally a type A person, and so I'm always going to suggest Google Calendar as like a really primary tool that is so helpful. So I started using that to kind of catalog all of the deadlines for scholarships, for different admissions that I was going to apply to. I also utilized, like, I created a spreadsheet on Excel to kind of help me track different scholarships that I was going to be applying to, different this was more honestly for when I was applying to programs. I think in terms of scholarship funding, I was very fortunate to get 100% Dean's Merit Scholarship coverage for my tuition. And so it really allowed me to not have to apply to that many scholarships or track them as much. So topping was, I think, maybe one of the only other scholarships I applied to. And it's because since I had the full tuition covered, it was difficult to find other opportunities that could fill just sort of living accommodations and funding for that, which is separate from the school funding. So because topping is a general funding, I'm able to use that for expenses outside of tuition, which is not typical of a lot of fellowships or a lot of scholarship opportunities. So yeah, so for me, I utilize tools like creating Excel spreadsheets. I utilized Google Calendar to track deadlines, and I really made it a mission to kind of connect with people to different opportunities I was applying for. So when I was applying for the Norman Topping Scholarship, I reached out to Norman Topping Fellows, like a Norman Topping Fellow who had previously been a recipient, to get more information. Also to see if I was eligible. I was teeting this tricky line of whether it would cover, whether I'd be eligible for the opportunity because I had my tuition covered. So I was really like looking for, again, specific scholarships that would fill outside necessities instead of tuition-based scholarships. And so meeting with a previous fellow really helped me get more information. I also met with John, who I know has been mentioned in the chat. He's awesome and really helps clarify, what you are eligible for, what you should be looking to target. And so I think that was really helpful for me. And he's definitely a tool and resource that I would recommend sort of utilizing when you're considering and weighing your financial aid package or trying to fill those gaps that some of the other panelists have talked about. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Adriana?
I think for myself, when I was applying to the LAA and Norman Topping scholarships, I was also a working professional. And I think similar to what Ashley mentioned, what worked best for me was tracking all of the scholarships via a spreadsheet. I know also I subscribed to the scholarship newsletter that is pushed out by Price Admissions Office. So that was really helpful to keep track of. And of course, I know MAP does a really good job of sharing these like via social media. So anytime I was looking at like the Price website or the Price Instagram or the MAP Instagram, like these funding opportunities would come up. So I would just add them to my list. And I think in terms of managing time, a lot of these applications are very similar. And so I don't think you necessarily have to like reinvent the wheel for each and every one of them. It's mostly just tailoring them towards what the prompt is by grabbing something from one application and adding on to it depending on what the prompt is saying. So don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel for all of these different applications, but rather you can kind of bridge and piece them together. That way you don't feel as like overwhelmed by so many essays that you have to do. So I think that would be my biggest piece of recommendation as you work through these applications.
Similar to everyone that's gone for me, I was also a working professional. I think I took the time period from when I accepted the admission in the fall to the start of fall as like the time that I'm not in school, and so taking that energy and putting it into applying to scholarships. So I had a spreadsheet, kind of went through monthly and applied to things on bulk. Again, you have a good foundation if you've applied to graduate school because you've had to say your mission statement, you've had to say what your career goals are in these essays, and kind of repurposing those for scholarships and also filling in the gaps of what they need. I also found that at times it can be annoying to always reach out to the same recommenders. So what I did is I asked them to just send me if they felt comfortable, a recommendation on letterhead that's pre-signed, and then sent those out to kind of make it quicker. But I think it's really important that even like after you start graduate school to kind of keep an eye on scholarships, because there are things that pop up and you're gaining more experience in graduate school. So your interests might change a bit. You might be eligible for other scholarships. And there are scholarships that come up for your second year as well, too. So it's not just for incoming, but I did find that the breadth of my search in scholarships were for incoming. So take advantage of this time, especially if you're not working, to just treat it like a job and apply to as many as possible. The worst thing that happens is you never hear back, right? Big deal. The best thing could happen is that you get money. And then I think it's also important that like once you start graduate school to, be able to be eligible for future scholarships, that's like when grades are starting to matter for your experience in graduate school. So keeping up your grades, and if you've received scholarships from USC, there's a minimum requirement anyways. And if you did not apply to all of the essays that were with admissions, they do give you another chance, I think, like into June for some of the scholarships. So I would just say apply for them anyways, even if you don't think you're qualified. You never know. Let them dictate if you're qualified or not. But I just really viewed it as like a professional task for me. And again, like I said, I use Google Sheets to, keep track of things. I know that USC emails out regularly once a month the scholarships that are out there, and then also links to other resources to find scholarships, talking to your classmates to know what they've applied for. Sometimes they're not eligible again, so then you can swoop in and try to apply and be the USC representative. And then beyond just scholarships, looking at fellowships. So fellowships oftentimes give you money, but then also like a mentorship experience or summits so that you can kind of network. So keep those on your radar once you become a graduate student, and take advantage of this time before you start, because your time will be quickly filled with academic work, career work, and then also clubs that you join.
Yeah, I would just like double down on a lot of the things that were already said. I think tracking with a spreadsheet is, that was something that I did that was really helpful. I also, through USC's like internal scholarship kind of database, I would just spend like a few hours, maybe every other week, just looking at different scholarships. And if I thought that there were scholarships that I qualified for, I'd put it down on my spreadsheet. And then, without doing like any kind of really in-depth review of those scholarships, as long as I had them down on my spreadsheet, then as I got closer to when I knew that their deadlines were, I could go in and just double check the eligibility. But I think somebody mentioned like a lot of the scholarships, especially for grad school or for incoming students, that's so true. And it's happened numerous times where I've like looked at a scholarship that looked, either I would have been eligible or had a lot of really cool perks to it, and I missed it. So this is definitely the time to do a lot of research on what's available to you, both like from USC, but also beyond in different organizations and foundations. So definitely do a lot of that research. And somebody else, I think, also mentioned meeting with somebody who's a recipient of the scholarship. That is another, I think, great way to help you like set yourself up for success with filling out the scholarship, because if you can get, somebody's firsthand experience being a part of that program, usually you can get a good sense of kind of what they're looking for from an applicant perspective. So yes, definitely retweet on the spreadsheet comment that everyone mentioned.
Yeah, I would add the same thing. Staying organized, I think like Mark mentioned, like really doing a landscape analysis of what's out there, right? And then putting it on your calendar, just because some of them are gonna have, like Adriana mentioned, same elements to sort of write about. So making sure you're staying organized in terms of where you're keeping those documents. Also, since some of them do require letters of recommendation, I would say, stay very engaged with whoever you first got letters from. for your USC application. If those are the same individuals you want to ask for letters for these scholarships. I took a different direction. I actually used that opportunity to reconnect with certain, individuals that I had not talked to in a while. So they were able to like learn more about, I was pursuing grad school, so they wanted to learn more about. And then like I just kind of asked them, hey, can you write me a letter to certain like scholarships that I'm applying to, just because those are necessary. I think the biggest one, and I've been guilty of this, is that don't wait until the last minute to write to or submit that scholarship. I know sometimes you're like, oh, I'll do it this weekend. I have a lot of time. Sometimes that's not enough time, especially if you need letters of rec. Those individuals might not be available during the weekend to respond to your, inquiry right away, just because they're also busy. So make sure you talk to them ahead of time, plan accordingly, in terms of like, what you have going on. I know like some of them being a full-time employee, like myself and Mark, there's obviously like things that come up last minute. So I needed to like really, and I'll say this honestly, sometimes I took a whole day off. I took vacation time to sort of apply for scholarships, just because I needed to be laser focused on like what I needed to write, and things of that sort. So make this a priority. I know it might not seem like, the biggest task, but it is important. It is money that's coming, that you don't have to pay back, right? There's commitments to it, but I think the best part about it is like this money you don't pay back to anyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. And just two more questions before we jump into answering the prospective students Q&A. But what are some requirements to maintain your scholarship fellowship? Is it difficult to manage the requirements with your personal, academic, and professional responsibilities?
I'll start us off then. So, some requirements for maintaining the scholarship are, as I think Jilla was mentioning earlier, your grades are always important. So, you have to have a 3.0 for grad fellows, above a 3.0, and you also have to be a continued full-time student. So, you cannot be part-time to get the Norman Topping Scholarship. You also have to attend events that they have. So, an example of this is they have a summer weekend long conference, sorry, and that's mandatory attendance. They have events throughout the academic semester, for students to attend, such as like Trojan Talks, where you get to like kind of network, or they have one-on-one meetings with an advisor. So all of those things are sort of mandatory components that are also required to remain in good standing. And the last one is you have to do community service hours, again, because the scholarship really emphasizes community engagement and volunteerism and this culture of volunteerism. It's important that you also contribute volunteer hours. And so you are required to complete 20 hours of community service per semester. And that is, I think, you don't have to do it the first semester that you're a student, but after that, that is the expectation in order to remain in good standing. And I'll pass it to Adriana.
Yeah, so similar for the Latino Alumni Association, of course, keeping up with your grades is one of the requirements. Another requirement is attending they also have like a one-day fall retreat, where you meet with all of the other Latino alumni scholars, and then you go through like your requirements for the semester. The other item that's also a requirement, we call it, I believe it's the alumni life classes. So they bring back Latino Alumni Association scholars, alumni who are now working professionals in different spaces. And so you have to attend one of those sessions in the fall, one of those in the spring. And of course, I believe they also encourage you to, like, for example, sign up for their mentorship program, where they sign you up where they pair you with a mentor depending on your interest. They also have different programming. So for example, they ask for scholars to volunteer for the Latino Alumni Association tailgate. So you get to meet some of those donors if you can become a volunteer for that event. Or most recently, some of the scholars attended the Latino Alumni Association Gala, so you get to volunteer and meet with donors who contribute to the Latino Alumni Association. That's more of like on the volunteer side, but for requirements, I think it would just be like your grades, the retreat, and the alumni class. And of course, they have different programming throughout the year as well for many of us to participate in.
My scholarship was one time. There was no conditionalities around it, which that's, the best kind. But I also am a merit scholar and a CMF fellow at Price. And so there are commitments for doing networking and attending events, and then also grade point average.
I was just trying to find because I do the words. I do think there is a GPA requirement for the Bryce Harlow Foundation, and AJ may have it more available, but I can't find it on their website right now. It's either a 3.0 or a 3.5. And then just, generally need to be pursuing a career in government relations and or lobbying. I think when you look at the Bryce Harlow Foundation website, it can look very skewed towards like people who are going into lobbying, but like it's, I would say, more general to just the field of public policy and government relations. So don't let that deter you. And then you do need to be working full time and in school full time. And I think that's that.
Yeah, I was looking for the requirement as well. I think it just says in good standing, which I'm assuming is, I think for USC it's a 3 point, depending on the degree that you're getting. So I think for the 3.0 is a safe bet to say that, that's a good standing. But yeah, I think for mostly like everybody has shared, a lot of things are, obviously you have to have good grades, attending certain events. I'll just share like for the Lambda Scholar, we also have certain requirements. I think that's just 10 hours per semester to attend or participate in social events. And again, I think the purposes of these mandatory required hours is not necessarily to kind of like, punish you or sort of like make you do certain extra things that you are required to partake in order to be part of the recipient of these scholarships. They actually do it to allow you to network with alumni, because a lot of these events that they put together is to bring alumni into campus or into certain spaces. And they just put you there to sort of like, allow you to meet who else is part of that network. So a lot of these things are meant for you to like, grow professionally, but also grow your network. And I think for the other scholarships that I received from HACU, from the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. So I mentioned the Café Bustelo one and the Ford one. That one did not have any requirements. Although the Café Bustelo one was actually a very shocking surprise that when I got home one day, I had a large package. I didn't know what it was about. And I was like, what did they send me? So I opened it. It was actually a coffee maker with a lot of coffee stuff in it. So one of the, I guess, encouragement was to post it online as a social media post that you were a scholar. So that was obviously like a fun opportunity. There's no requirement. But I have a coffee maker at home now that was free. I didn't have to buy anything. So that was an added extra bonus for that specific scholarship. But and the Rodolfo one, I didn't really have any sort of additional requirements. There's obviously, you have to write a thank you note, and that was sort of like, just writing your gratitude towards like receiving the scholarship, which is not that big of a lift.
Thank you all. And our last question is, and I know all of you briefly mentioned this, but in addition to the scholarship funds, what other resources has your scholarship fellowship provided you, such as networking opportunities, mentorship or internship opportunities, and has your scholarship fellowship help advance or support your career and personal goals?
Yeah, so for the Norman Topping Fellowship, Fund Scholarship, I honestly applied because of the outside um resources and benefits that the program offers. It again, because I had a full tuition kind of coverage for my Dean's Merit Scholarship, I was really looking for the other resources that the program offers, which is they have a mentorship program with upperclassmen. So I believe you can be paired with like a second year Norman Topping Fellow who's also a grad student, and that can be helpful, especially when you're the fellowship is, I mean, the scholarship is also catered towards like first generation students. So like as a first generation student, obviously mentorship and networking opportunities are incredibly helpful to your career and professional development. It also had this, again, student leadership conference that we kind of discussed, which was really an amazing start to the semester for me as a first generation master's student. I was able to make a lot of friends during that conference, and it allowed me to start the semester already having those kind of connections and ties, and also knowledge of different resources that USC offers, and kind of a community experience, which I think is really beneficial. In addition, they also offer other additional funds. One is for exceptional funding. I know this is the last question, so I'm not trying to take up a lot of time. Happy to talk more with anyone who has additional questions, but there's exceptional funding that can help pay for additional conference funds, or for me in particular, it's going to help support me pay for like a Maymester that Price offers, which is really a great opportunity. In addition, they have like test prep funds and other resources that I'm sure you can find on the website, and happy to talk more at a later time, but those are really great fundamental opportunities to my growth and ability to like network and meet people and really interact with other first generation students. And so there's a lot of resources that the fund offers, and I highly, highly recommend applying, aside from those like funding opportunities, just the sort of network and community opportunity that it offers, which can be really helpful for students who are first gen and kind of don't have a lot of guidance in navigating higher education, which is my case. So yeah, that's what I'll share for now. Thank you. Adriana?
Yeah, so for the Latino Alumni Association Scholarship, similar to Norman Topping, where some of the programming revolves around like networking and mentoring. So we recently were matched with a LAA mentor. I personally just met with mine on Monday, and so she has been very helpful in terms of, reviewing my job application material, since I'm in that phase of, applying for jobs as a graduating student. I think also the alumni classes have been very helpful to explore and be a part of. And so I would, highly encourage you all, if you are a recipient of the scholarship, to participate in those alumni classes. They're really interesting. And you get to meet with alumni. I think just in general as well, they have a cohort of some Latino Alumni Association scholars who kind of have that social committee aspect to it. And they are able to create some social programming for us as scholars to bond. So that's like a different component of the scholarship. And then of course, just attending like Latino Alumni Association events. Like I mentioned, the tailgate or the gala are really good spaces to network in a more casual setting with some of the LAA donors and alumni. And I think those have been really welcoming spaces for myself. Also, I do want to kind of just chime in that the program leaders of LAA, so Mercy, Dolores, and Isabel, really create a inclusive space for students to feel connected and feel welcomed. If we have any questions, for example, I know as part of the Price Latinx Student Association, we recently partnered with LAA for an event that we'll be hosting on April 11th. And so that partnership is there. They're really much have that partnership with us at Price. And so they create a really good welcoming community for their scholars and their recipients. And so I think that's just a couple of additional perks that kind of come with being an LAA scholar.
Like I mentioned, Wes McClure is just the one and done kind of thing, but I think with any of these scholarships, put them on your resume. It shows that you're a candidate that was competitive enough that someone wanted to pay for you to go to school. So in particular with the Wes McClure Scholarship, other city managers in California know about it. Right. So that just is another entry point to chat as you're doing coffee chats or interviewing, or just in these spaces where city managers are. So in particular for Wes McClure, but I would say with any of these scholarships, they're highly competitive. It shows that you stood out. Put it on your resume, and right underneath on LinkedIn, when you say that you're a sole price graduate student, you list all of your scholarships or fellowships right under that.
Yeah, totally agree. Bryce Harlow, one of the, I think, most amazing things about it is there is a mentorship program associated with it, and all those folks that I mentioned that are, senior government affairs folks are on the board and are available mentors. So my first mentor was a partner at a well-known public affairs firm in DC, and now my current mentor is the president and CEO of the National Manufacturers Association, which is a big trade association. And I think one of the coolest things with the mentorship program is when we were doing the matching, I told the organizers, like, it's important to me that my mentor is somebody from the LGBTQ community if possible, and both of my mentors have been, which has just been a good connection to have beyond just like a professional relationship. So that has been an awesome opportunity to connect with some of those more senior folks who down the line, when I am hopefully going to be moving to DC at some point, I can activate those relationships and get a job, hopefully.
Yeah, I think what everyone has said is super important. My mentor from Bryce Harlow is actually the CEO of the U.S. Travel Association. I'm meeting with him next week, and he's been able to share a lot of, interesting things about his career path and everything else. We also went to the same undergrad university, so that bond immediately formed. So it was kind of like, exciting to see somebody else who also, came from California, moved to DC, and has, grown here in this area in policy advocacy. So it's pretty exciting. I think the other scholarships, definitely the networking opportunity, the Latino Alumni Association was very instrumental my first year. They helped guide me through like a lot of questions I had just because, obviously there was a lot of opportunities that I wasn't like taking advantage of. They connected me to a lot of different alumni who, some of them actually invited me to their house. So I think that was like very special to actually, learn from somebody. They welcomed you to have dinner with them, just to kind of sit in a round table and discuss some of the opportunities that exist here at USC. So I think that was really something that was meaningful to me. And the Lambda Scholarship, the network, like I said, it's also not just about staying professional, but also like having fun and enjoying others' company because that scholarship particularly, we have an amazing tailgate. It was super fun to like, be a part of it this year. So I think I'll encourage everybody to kind of like, make sure you participate. I know it's busy to be in school, and if you have to work, those things are a huge commitment. But I think you have to also find time to enjoy the little things that come with grad school.
Thank you so much to all the panelists for answering all of our questions. We only had a few questions in the chat. I know that we had one question about international or scholarships for international students, and I'm going to put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me. We do have some scholarships that international students are eligible for. I could go ahead and send you a list of that and connect you with one of the international students that's on the MAP executive board. And lastly, I want to leave with some information. If you scan this QR code, you can go ahead and sign up for our Price Scholarship newsletter. It comes out every month with a list of scholarships that are due that month. And then, oh, this is a newsletter. And then this is a list of scholarships. You can find many on our website. And then this is the scholarship newsletter. And we'll go ahead and send these slides out to everyone. And then please reach out to John Mendoza if you have any other questions. He's an excellent resource. I know when I was making the decision to attend USC, I would constantly reach out to him, and he was so helpful. So this is John's contact information. We want to thank everyone for attending. We have the USC MAP Instagram if you'd like to give us a follow. We have a few more events throughout the semester, and we'd love to have all of you there. Thank you so much, everyone. And we will be uploading this recording in case anyone would like to access this as well.